Hello again, everyone. Welcome back to the Best Darn Diddly Review Show. My name is Miles, better known as MrMostDaysOff, and I am back once again to talk about The Simpsons with you. Today, the WIzKid and I review One Fish, Two Fish, Blowfish, Bluefish, and The Way We Was. So without any further ado, let me introduce you to your co-host with the most, Richie the WIzKid. How are you today, Rich?
Fine and dandy like sour candy. It's another lovely Monday with a couple episodes that I remember fondly from my childhood. But as usual, we'll get right into that. I'll throw it back to you, the man, the myth, the McBain. It is Miles.
Very appropriate. We may meet that character here shortly. But before we get to that, let's talk about One Fish, Two Fish, Blowfish, Bluefish, which debuted on January 24th, 1991. The chalk gag is one of my favorites. It's I will not cut corners, but about halfway down the chalkboard, instead of writing out the sentences, Bart used the ditto marks. And then we get to the couch gag, which I like for a couple of reasons. And this one, all the Simpsons run in and the couch actually ends up flipping over backwards. I like this for two reasons. One, I loved doing that shit when I was a kid. I used to get in so much trouble because my friends and I would go diving through the couch and end up knocking it over backwards, and I'm sure we broke a lot of furniture in both mine and my friend's house throughout the years. But I also really appreciate that, as usual, Maggie ends up being the only one who makes it to see the show because her little face pops up over the bottom of the couch right before the show's credits ends.
Jedi Master.
Or Muggle-born witch. Time will tell. That debate will be next week when Dr. Andy Briseno comes back to join us for a couple of other episodes.
I feel like it's all one and the same at this point. It's all a matter of viewpoints.
Yeah, it's like a continuing theory, right? But I like the idea of you two debating, so I'm going to keep that dream alive.
It's not like we haven't done it before.
Yeah, you guys have thrown down a few times. But this episode opens in the Simpsons' home with Marge cooking dinner and Homer not so patiently awaiting the microwave to finish cooking their meatloaf. Pork chops are going to be for the following night. But their meatloaf is almost ready. It's 8 seconds away, and Homer says, "Isn't there anything faster than a microwave?"
This kind of takes me back to another episode, I think, when there's food warming in the microwave, and he says something like, 30 seconds. If I would have started at 30 seconds sooner, I wouldn't be in this mess.
Yeah, I think that's been a thing that you and I have said to each other, and anytime you and I have to wait on each other, it's just like, well, if I would have started this X amount of time sooner, we wouldn't be in this mess. Yeah, totally. Great line. So we're at the dinner table eating the meatloaf, and Lisa, in her usual Lisa style, is kind of being mopey, and she's bummed out about how, she's the mundane schedule of eating the same thing. She has a line where she starts talking about, how are you, if you're raising me to be open-minded and to try new things, and Homer cuts her off and says, "What are you talking about? No one's trying to teach you that." One of my favorite lines in this whole episode. But it gets Marge to thinking, maybe the Simpsons should try something new. Maybe they should be adventurous. And on Friday the following night, instead of having pork chops, they're going to go give the new sushi restaurant a try. Which,
not on pork chop night.
Exactly. Homer is super pissed off that it's got to be on pork chop night. But Lisa does break him down, not by asking twice, but by asking up to 99 times. Bart has a funny moment where he's talking about how word on the street or word on the playground is that sushi is just a bunch of raw fish. And yeah, that's true, but it's a delicacy, and Lisa is quick to point out that in many cultures it's a treat, so she's excited to be able to try something new. They get to the Japanese restaurant, the sushi bar, and they're greeted in Japanese, which startles the Simpsons, but the hostess is just like, "Oh no, don't worry, they're just saying hello." And Homer walks up to the sushi chef and screams in an angry voice, "Hello," thinking he's being culturally friendly at this point.
Hey, at least he's trying. Most of the time you don't get that kind of effort from Homer.
Oh yeah, definitely. He's making the effort in just a very Homer sort of way, which is an awesome moment. We next get the first appearance of a reoccurring side character. It's Akira, the Japanese waiter. However, what's kind of unique about his appearance here is he's voiced by George Takei. However, in later episodes, that role will actually be taken over by Hank Azaria.
But it's good that George was in The Simpsons or involved way back when. I mean, you get him in pretty much some capacity in every popular cartoon show these days. So it's cool that he was doing it in the earlier years with The Simpsons.
Yeah, I'm also really glad that George Takei was just able to be involved in some way, shape, or form, because I really dig that dude. He's an awesome guy, a really funny guy too, and he makes a lot of appearances in a lot of shows that we like. He had this is a show that probably nobody saw, but there is a show called Party Down that came on for a while and actually starred the dude that played Ben on Parks and Rec.
Yeah, Adam Scott.
Yeah, that guy. Thank you. And also the chick that replaced the hot redhead in Now You See Me Too.
Lizzie Kaplan, I think.
Man, glad you're here, WIzKid. That's why we bring you along for these things.
She's also the chick in charge of Franco and Rogan in The Interview.
You're absolutely correct. But yeah, so George Takei actually has an appearance in that show as well. It's called Party Down. It's very dry humor a lot of times, but it kills me sometimes. And his episode in particular was really good. But anyway, moving back to The Simpsons, we have the Simpsons family about to order sushi for the first time. And I love what Marge says. She asked the waiter, "What would you recommend for someone who's not really sure they should be here?"
I feel like in this scene, this is how it would go if we went somewhere, because you know that I've never actually had it before, and you've tried to talk me into going out for sushi a few times by explaining your reservations at first, and then I remember when you first started eating with Emily all the time, you basically said you were addicted to it because it was just that good. So I'm still willing to go try.
Meeting Emily, so, like, you would say there should be all these, like, great things about meeting your wife and, like, all these fond memories and, like, these things that bind you together and whatnot, but, like, if I'm being real and I'm being honest, one of, like, I would argue the concrete foundation pillars of our relationship was sushi, because she loved that shit before I met her. She introduced me to it, and it's like crack, dude. Like, it is so goddamn good, and, like, don't get me wrong, it's like anything. I've had sushi that I'm like, that one's not really for me, but overall, as a whole, it's super yummy, and man,
I've
just
never
like
heard
actually
you
relatively good for
like
you.
That. I've never heard you describe something without like a swear word or an over exaggeration in it. Really? Like,
my bad. It's really fucking delicious.
No. Like it meant more that you weren't swearing while you made the description of it. Like when you just say super yummy, I go, damn, this is serious.
It's super cereal. Yeah. I've been teaching all weekend, and I have to be careful not to curse. I just think I haven't turned my brain off from that yet. So they'll start flying here shortly. I'm getting woken up.
Well, back to The Simpsons here. The thing that I started thinking about while it does this, not really a montage, but it has a few small moments where Homer keeps eating different kinds of sushi. The part that threw me off is I started thinking towards the end when he's almost tried everything. I'm going, damn, this bill is going to be really, really expensive. Homer just keeps trying new things, and yeah, they went out to do something different, and they're not doing pork chop night, but I bet this is like a once-in-a-lifetime thing once they get their bill from tonight.
Dude, and like the difference in cost between sushi and pork chops is pretty fucking spectacular. Yeah. Like that's a big jump, a big leap. And I do have to say, that's actually the biggest drawback about sushi, is good sushi is not cheap. However, if you're smart, good sushi restaurants usually have happy hour, and that's when you get your money back.
Fair enough. See, the things you learn on the Best Darn Deadly Review Show.
I also really appreciated that Homer's beverage choice was a Duffy Dama, which I thought was just a great little play. I didn't realize that was one of the options. When I went to Universal, they only had Duff and Dufftoberfest, I believe.
Well, that's if you go over to Japan and order Duff, that's what you get, I guess.
I'm guessing so.
It's probably the exact same thing.
So there's also a fun scene here.
It's Doof. It's German.
There's also a fun scene here where Bart and Lisa are singing karaoke together. And there's kind of an interesting little tidbit about this. The song they sing for karaoke is the Shaft theme song. And according to Al Jean, they had to fight with the censors for 2 days to get this through because they said that the lyrics are too inappropriate. The only reason that they were actually able to convince the censors that it was okay is because they found footage of that song being performed by none other than Isaac Hayes himself at the Academy Awards.
Oh, wow. I guess in 1991, that's a usable reason for you to be able to sing it on your cartoon show. But as we all know now, we've had Robin Williams singing Blame Canada at the Academy Awards, so that's really not saying a whole lot.
No, it's a very big leap from those two, isn't it?
Yeah.
So, Homer, as Richie already alluded to, has basically ordered everything on the menu at this point. So much so that he's trying to find something he hasn't tried, and he comes across fugu, which the waiter instantly warns can be very, very poisonous. And Homer doesn't care. He just wants his damn fugu because he hasn't had it yet. Well, for what it's worth, fugu is, in real life, legit a cut of a blowfish that, if prepared incorrectly, is actually poisonous. I don't know if it's got the 24 hours later your heart explodes conditions, but I do know for sure that it is, in fact, a poisonous cut of fish, and it's something that takes Japanese sushi chefs a really long time. They actually have to spend several years and take many tests before they are allowed to serve it or prepare it.
I'm just wondering who's the first person that actually did this the right way, and they were like, it's one of those things where, if you boil it for too long, it explodes you, but if you get it at just the right moment before, it's totally fine to eat. Like,
yeah, that's super fucked up, right? Like,
how did people
who
figure it
decided
out?
that was a good idea?
Yeah. Is it like the first time somebody did it, they got lucky and got it right, so then they kept cutting back on the time they were preparing it just to see like where the line was?
You would think that if the chart that the sushi chef used was correct, and like so much of that fish really was poisonous and only a little tiny bit was good, that you would see so many people die from trying to eat it that they would just give up on it and assume it was no bueno.
No, we're a man. We have to conquer every animal.
We have to give it a try. I did think it was interesting though, just a couple more fun facts about fugu. It's actually banned or prohibited for the Emperor of Japan to ever eat it. It's actually in the rules when you become Emperor of Japan that you are no longer allowed to have it, just in case it's prepared incorrectly. And also, my thought there, I'm speculating here myself, but from what I read, my brain instantly went to, that would be like way too easy of a way to assassinate an emperor. It's just to like, I accidentally prepared the fugu incorrectly.
Or here's your fugu, and it's just easier to say you're not allowed to have it at all.
Exactly. But it's also banned entirely still today in the European Union, just because they don't feel the juice is worth the squeeze, I guess.
Wait, is that why Brexit happened?
I guess so. That was the heart of Brexit.
They want their fugu.
We want our damn fugu. We've tried everything else. Yeah. So there's some really good stuff going on in the back of this restaurant right now.
I thought you were going to say in the back of that car.
That led to some really good stuff happening in the back of that car. The entire time the Simpsons have been at the sushi restaurant, there's been a master chef trying to teach a sous chef how to prepare sushi and really insulting him and telling him how awful he's been doing the entire time. And it just so happens that his hot date, none other than Edna Krabappel, shows up at the sushi restaurant right when Homer orders his fugu. So the master chef uses one of the lines that we'll come to talk about a little bit more later, and tells his sous chef to cover for me while he goes and bones Edna Krabappel.
Which, my thing with that scene when they're in the backseat of the car is, I think that Edna has a fetish. If you notice the entire time in that scene that his busy little hands, as we get to in the next episode, he's calling her, Miss Krabappel, the entire time. And I was like, I don't know. It's got to be a fetish thing. Like, she wants to be the teacher. Because why wouldn't he just say Edna? Like, obviously he knows who she is, but he's using her last name. So that means that she's like, no, you call me Mrs. Krabappel. So
that's kind of hot, dude.
She has a teacher-student fetish thing, which just makes the whole show a whole lot stranger.
Hey, man, a real quick tip for ugly girls. If you want to overcome being ugly, be kinkier. Just saying.
And that was Miles' dime for the day. It's a new segment we just started.
If I had a dime for every time. But I really like the fact that there was a map to the hospital on the back of the sushi menu. I guess a lot of people order the fugu. Or, to be fair, actually, something that does kind of, it weirded me out about eating sushi is, like, the proper way to eat sushi is to, like, take the entire piece in your mouth and, like, eat the whole thing.
Yeah.
So you, like, don't, like, take a bite out of it like you would, like, a slider or something, which to me, as an American, was super weird the first time I tried it. But I could see it as theoretically being a choking hazard. I would throw that out there. But Homer gets to the hospital, and he's getting the bad news. He's kind of griping to himself, and I really love the line where he's griping about trying something new. Why did we have to do this on pork chop night? I've never heard of a poisonous pork chop.
I think we kind of jumped the gun a little bit. It's obviously Homer ate a bad part of the Blowfish, according to the restaurant, and that's when they said the hospital map was on the back of the menu. So,
oh yeah, we did jump ahead there. Yeah, so the sous chef tried to prepare it. They didn't feel they did it right, and Homer's on his way to get his death sentence. Dr. Hibbert comes in and says that he's got 24 hours to live. Oops, actually 22. Sorry I kept you waiting so long.
There's some times where I really love Dr. Hibbert.
Well, I just love that joke because, I mean, everybody knows the frustrations of waiting at the doctor's office, and it's the fucking worst, and it happens every time. Like, no matter what, you always get there, and even if they let you into, like, the little room right away, then you're just waiting in that little room till the doctor comes along for, like, an hour.
What I liked is when Dr. Hibbert and Marge first walked in the room, and Homer wants to get the news, and he says, hold on a second, and he looks at Marge, and he goes, I can read Marge like a book. Ooh, it's good news, isn't it? And Marge just looks terrible. She looks like she's so upset.
She's about to cry. Yeah. Homer has a great moment here, too, where he goes through the 5 stages of grief as Dr. Hibbert explains what he's probably going to be going through over the next day, but he does it all in the course of about 45 seconds.
Well, it makes sense, because that way they don't have to have as many moments where, like, he's so upset and shut off because he knows he's going to die and stuff like that. Like, it was a really clever way of getting by all that so it could stay as a cartoon show.
And that brings up a really, really good point, actually, in general, in that I'm still just blown away, having just watched this episode and having seen this episode dozens and dozens of times in the past. I'm still blown away by how funny and how this episode makes you feel, despite the fact that it's ultimately about a man on his last day of his life, or so we think. Yeah. They take something so very heavy and they're able to make some really great jokes out of it, and just to keep it lighthearted enough that even though they're dealing with some heavy subject matter, it's very watchable and very entertaining. You don't get that depressing feeling. There's a couple of times, I'll admit, that you get a little bit sad when you like see the look on Marge's face, for instance. But ultimately, they do a really good job of keeping the tone of this Simpsons.
I would agree with that for sure. I mean, obviously we know, since there's in their 28th season, we know Homer's not going to die. And even as a kid watching it, I didn't think he was actually going to die. But still, you're like, what's going on? Like, how do you get out of this?
Right. How do you hit that reset button we talk about, where you have to reset the Simpsons world at the end of every episode? And this one this one takes us on a real long journey before we get back to a reset.
And speaking of that journey, Homer has a list to follow on this journey, which he will follow terribly.
I had the list as make list, which is crossed out, eat a hearty breakfast, make a videotape for Maggie, have a man-to-man conversation with Bart, listen to Lisa play her saxophone, make his funeral arrangements, make peace with his dad, have a beer with the boys at the bar, tell off Mr. Burns' boss, go hang gliding, which I thought was fun.
The 2 random ones back to back here.
Plant a tree, and then have a final dinner with his family. And as he was making his list, he had to ask Marge, what's that word for that thing that they like to do when they're alone together, which is to be intimate with Marge, which is the last thing on his list of things he'd like to do.
Which I think he spelled it be intimate. I was going to say, the thing I like about the list, besides the first thing on there, the make a list, the second thing on there where he's supposed to eat a healthy breakfast, I love it because we're going to get to it in a second, but after he wakes up, and that's literally the first thing he's supposed to do for the next day, you'll see him at the kitchen table, and there's donuts all over the table.
Did it say healthy or did it say hearty?
I think it said healthy. I got the list in front of me. Oh, no.
Oh, I thought it said hearty. Okay, it is hearty.
But still, that's not a hearty breakfast.
Yeah, you're right. Either way, donuts do not consist of a hearty or a healthy breakfast. That's probably true.
This list is not going to stand up at all to Homer J. Simpson.
No, it will not. Including the suggestion that Marge has to add to it, which is to get up early and watch the sunrise together, which they instantly, like, as soon as that gets said, you're just like, wait, what, really? Homer's gonna get up at dawn? Like, that doesn't sound right. And of course, the very next scene, we see him smacking the snooze alarm on his alarm clock as soon as it goes off for the sunrise.
I think he just turned it off. Like, it goes off at 6 and he hits it, and then the split second later it's 11:30. So he slept an extra 5.5 hours. He's not.
You're right. It wasn't a snooze. It was just hitting the alarm. That's a long ass time to sleep in, dude.
Yeah, it's your last day on Earth. You can do whatever the hell you want.
I have, like, this drives my wife crazy when I have this attitude, but it's just the attitude I always have, is I feel like sleep is just time you're not getting back. So, like, I'm always, like, pushing to go do more things and whatnot, and she's just like, I could have a nap. Like, dude, we'll go to, like, a theme park together or something, and I'm like, well, if we time it right, we can get from this coaster to that coaster, catch this show, and then when that show's over, which will give us a break off our feet, of course, so that's basically a rest, then we can run over to this water ride, get from there, and you know, like, that's basically me. I just want to fucking hit everything, and she'll, like, ride something and be like, let's just go have a sit, or how about I go back to the room and have a nap? And I'm just like, you've got to be effing kidding me.
And somehow you guys make it work. I don't know what you're doing.
So we get to Homer trying to get the things on his list accomplished. As we mentioned, he had his breakfast. Wasn't so hearty, but it was, you know, I guess hearty could include donuts, really. I mean, I don't know what else. Did he have, like, bacon, maybe? I don't know. It doesn't matter. He went on to have his talk with Bart, his man-to-man, if you will. Instantly, Bart gets defensive whenever he starts talking about, like, responsibility, and he's like, well, Lisa never does anything around here. Why didn't you go make her do something?
And then it's time for him to have his man-to-man with Bart, isn't it?
Yeah, that's during the man-to-man. That's when Lisa he gets defensive about Lisa. He starts talking about one of my favorite parts was he talks about the 3 sentences to get through life. One we already mentioned earlier. It's ironically what the sushi chef said to his apprentice before it killed Homer, or before he basically served Homer poison, which is cover for me.
Number 2.
Number 2 is a good idea, boss.
And number 3, which will be used all the time, and I've used it my entire life.
It was like that when I got here.
Love that. I love that. I also love the beginning of the heart-to-heart when Bart de-pantses himself and jumps right in Homer's lap like he's going to get spanked.
Yeah, Homer yells, Bart! He just instantly assumes the position.
Bart thought he was getting in trouble, so he just runs in, takes his pants off, and gets on Homer's knee for a spanking.
Yeah, that was good stuff. For sure. So, we also get a moment where Homer tries to teach Bart how to shave, but turns out Homer's pretty fucking awful at shaving, because he, like, cuts himself a lot.
Put a piece of toilet paper
like,
here.
A lot.
In here.
Don't worry, son. The blood will hold it in place.
And we have the Macaulay Culkin moment, although this might have been before that, which I can throw out the Simpsons did it thing.
Simpsons did it. You're absolutely right. This was before. You know what? I'm going to double check that right now because I don't want to put my foot in my mouth again. But I do believe that was, in fact, before the movie Home Alone, which was in the early 90s. But I think it was like 90. Oh, nope. I'm totally wrong. Home Alone happened in 1990, and this is in 1991. Yeah. So Simpsons it was probably close. I don't know when these episodes are written.
Exactly. You don't know when they filmed that scene. Maybe a Simpsons writer worked on both. Who knows?
Yeah, you know, that's actually another good point, is they could have some crossover. I didn't even think about that. Good point.
What I like is when Bart reaches for the cologne, the aftershave, he knocks the bottle over and breaks it. And Homer goes, "Why, you little?" And Bart literally looks at him and goes, "It was like that when I got here." Literally using the lesson that he was just taught.
And it makes Homer proud. Homer instantly goes from being mad to being proud of his son for learning the lesson he just taught him. So next, Homer's going to go visit Lisa and listen to her play the sax. As soon as Homer walks in the room, Lisa asks her dad if she would like Lisa asked her dad if he would like her to knock off this infertile racket. Homer says, "No, actually, I want to listen to you play the saxophone." And Lisa starts questioning him as to why. He argues, "Can't you just shut up and play and can't you just shut up and share your gift?"
Oh, when the saints go over there, Oh, over there.
Yeah.
Oh, over there.
Oh my goodness, I love this part so much. So Lisa starts playing some very bummer, moody music, and she can tell that it's visibly making Homer sad. So she decides to pep it up a little bit and starts playing the tune that Richie just graced us with. It's "I Want to Be in That Roomba When the Saints Go Over There."
Oh, over there. Oh, over there. Good old Homer. Makes it up as he goes.
Kind of a cool moment, though. Again, this is one of those episodes that's weird that there's so many funny moments, but like layered over these really sweet moments where it's like, I mean, as we're watching this, we're to presume this is the last moment between Homer and Lisa, and that's dark, but hilarious.
It's a sweet moment, but for terrible reasons.
Right. So next we move on to Maggie. Before he can make a video for Maggie, he's got to go and borrow Flanders' video recorder. When he's over there, Flanders invites him to a barbecue he's having tomorrow, and at first Homer is like, I don't want to go to that oh, wait, tomorrow? Oh, of course I'll be there tomorrow, and I'll even bring the thickest, juiciest steaks I can find.
And then I love the what he says after that when he's leaving Flanders' house, when he's laughing to himself, and he says, the joke's on him. I'll be dead by then. Oh, gosh. Good old Homer.
Yeah, Homer's great in this episode. Homer kills it in this episode. There's so many funny Homer lines. So we get to the recording, and Homer starts off by telling Maggie that this video is coming to her from beyond the grave. Woo! Assuming she hasn't recorded over it. The video is interrupted, and actually the kind of funny, ironic, sweet sort of thing here is that Maggie actually gets a video of who Homer really is.
Yes, absolutely.
He tells off Milhouse for calling, the audacity he has there. He scratching his ass in frame the entire time. And, this is say what you will about Homer, but I feel like this doesn't do too shabby of a job of kind of painting a picture.
Yeah, it's just a typical Homer moment where he's trying too hard at first and not getting his message across. And then when he gets distracted, you actually have the character up front and center, which... If I had something like that, 18 years later in my life and I didn't get to know my father and I had that videotape, it would probably just make me have a stupid little grin on my face.
Yeah, it would definitely be something you'd cherish.
Yeah.
Speaking of things you cherish, he also moves on to his relationship with his father and to make peace with his dad. He goes to the retirement home, and at first his dad is just kind of like telling him off, and like, Homer's like, well, we never got to do this, and this, and he's just like, yeah, well, we never danced, whatever, either. But when Homer actually breaks down and tells his dad that he loves him, Grandpa breaks down, and they have this like emotional bond for a bit. But then it gets funny because as they start doing more and more activities together, Homer's just finally like, gee, Dad, way to waste my last moments.
But I don't know, it's nice. You get a little Grandpa Simpson time. You get to see that he does have a heart despite what happens most of the time he speaks. And again, it's a touching scene between a father and son, like we've talked about in this episode already, where you have these moments that you could tell are very meaningful, and you don't know why they make you feel a little upset.
True. However, all this extra time is a little bit costly to Homer, because every activity that they do together with his dad, he has to cross something else off his list, and he has to lose, like, hang out with the boys at the bar.
No hang gliding for Homer.
He really wanted to plant a tree for some reason.
Oh, I really wanted to do that one.
To make up time to get back to his family, he is pedal to the metal on the way home, trying to go as fast as he can. And in a real bad twist of fate, he gets pulled over, wasting precious moments of his final hours. He's a little bit mouthy with the cops, and he starts talking about how just give him his ticket already. He pays his taxes, which pays their salary. This ends up with the cops actually taking Homer to jail, and there's a great line by the cops where they take him to his jail cell. They're like, hey, look what else your taxpayer dollars pay for.
Well, who do you call in a pinch like that? You can't call Marge.
Why can't he fucking call Marge? That part drove me crazy, actually.
He didn't want to put that kind of pressure on her. They had this plan about how the last evening together would be, and he doesn't want to ruin that. Homer's a romantic at heart, which we'll get into in the next episode.
True. No, and I appreciate not wanting to put that stress on your wife. Like, don't get me wrong, I totally do, because, I mean, that's just obvious. But when you're talking about a matter of hours left, like, What if his heart had exploded while he was in the car ride home with Barney? It could have been a car ride home with his wife. Even if it's a car ride home from jail, under the circumstances, I think you would cherish those moments.
I'm pretty sure I would call my wife if I had one in that situation, but for the sake of the story, that's not the way it works.
It made sense. Yeah, and it did fit into the story quite nicely.
And it gives him a chance to actually see his friends since you didn't think he's going to make it to Moe's.
Very good point, because that was actually one of the saddest things, is he lost his hour of drinking at the bar with the boys, and this basically after he called Barney to bail him out, he had no choice but to at least go have 1 or 2 or possibly 3 last beers.
Which, for the record, $50 for bail, that's freaking cheap, man.
Right?
Recently went through this with one of my friends the last few weeks where a bunch of us had to go get them out of prison.
And it wasn't me.
Yeah, it wasn't
Woo-hoo!
you. It wasn't me. And I think it was $315.
Dude, I had it way worse than that. I got arrested on UNT campus once, and that was a fucking expensive bailout.
Ooh, I bet that was. Yeah, but that's... Oh, we can talk for days about the parking department and the police.
When I heard $50 bail, I was just like, holy
what
shit,
an age.
that is crazy. Yeah, for real. Dude, if it were only $50 for bail, I'd do way more stupid shit. Like, right now, I'd be like, hey, let's go do something illegal. This will be awesome.
So you're saying the economy could have a bigger turnaround if they lowered the fees on things.
And made certain things legal. But, that's a whole different conversation.
I don't know what you're talking about.
You plead the fifth?
I plead 420. Wait, what?
I really like this moment at the bar where Homer's like, I have to go call Marge, and like Barney makes the like whipped crack sound, like making fun of him, and it's like, dude, come on. Ironically, the kids get bored while waiting for Homer to come home for dinner, and to pass the time, they decide to prank call Moe, which is one of our favorite gags. This time it was Seymour Butts by Bart and Lisa to Moe, and it just so happened to make the line busy when Homer was trying to call Marge.
Was this before or after they drove past Burns outside?
This was before that. I think they do that on the way home.
No, because Homer runs home after that because there's a flat.
You're totally right. Yeah, so they did already go by Burns here, and Homer got to tell Burns to eat his shorts, which was on his list, and he had to cross it off, thinking he wouldn't have time. That was
honestly one of my favorite moments in the episode. It was not Homer yelling at Burns, but Burns' response, which Burns says, "We'll see who eats whose shorts." Which he gave Smithers, or asked Smithers who it was, and Smithers told him it was Simpson, and he said, "I want him in my office 9 a.m. tomorrow, or Monday morning, whenever it was." So now Homer has to go to a barbecue the day after he's dead already, and then go see his boss to get yelled at after he's already dead. So he's racking up a big rap sheet here on his last day, which is the way you do it.
He's got a lot of stuff to make up. Yeah, he really does. So Homer has one more last beer from Moe, and then he has to hit the road. Richie already said it. Barney ends up having a flat, so Homer actually runs all the way home, which is very un-Homer-like,
well,
actually.
I mean, he was drunk, so he can do superhuman things while drunk. It's a proven fact. Actually, it's only one beer, so he shouldn't be drunk, but still.
So Homer makes it home. He tells all the kids he loves them very quickly, and then rushes Marge upstairs. Homer is gargling mouthwash while Marge is talking about how she wrote him a poem and wants to read it to him. It's a very sweet, romantic poem that she has written for Homer, talking about their love and his last day and all that good stuff. And they presumably are intimate together. And then Homer leaves Marge and goes and says goodbye to each kid as they're sleeping one last time. And he decides to listen to the good book on tape as he stares out the window in his recliner and his final moments on Earth.
Actually, I really enjoy the moments where he says goodbye to each of his kids when they're sleeping and kisses them, because the last one is Bart. And after he kisses Bart, even though Bart's asleep, you can see his physicality change when Homer kisses him. Bart almost gets angry in his sleep.
I really dug the fact that as he was kissing each child, he was like, Maggie, I hope you stay as sweet as you always are. Lisa, I know you're going to go on to do great things. And it was Bart, I really like your sheets.
Yeah. Which is about the nicest compliment you can give Bart.
I also enjoyed the fact that as he's listening to the Bible on tape, he got bored and starts fast forwarding through parts of it. Which, to be fair, if you've ever I've read the Bible. I don't know if you've read the Bible. It's one of the most boring fucking possible reads that you can ever come across, because there are literal chapters where it's just like the parts he was fast forwarding to. It's like, and so begotteth everything to so and they begotteth everything to so and you're just like, I don't give a fuck about any of these people.
Was that Larry King's voice that was doing the voice? I forgot who it was. The Good Book narrated.
It was Larry King. But what's interesting about that is he was not the first choice. It was actually first offered to Bruce Springsteen, who turned it down, and then also offered to William Shatner, who also rejected the part before it got to Larry King.
Wow. Oh my gosh. I want to hear the Shatner version. I really do. That just, oh. Well, that'd be also kind of interesting if you had Shatner and Takai in the same episode of The Simpsons.
Dude, I didn't even think about that. You're totally right. That would have been interesting.
So anyways, we're listening to the Good Book on tape. So he died listening to the Bible, right?
As you very well know, the next morning, Marge wakes up to an empty bed. She rushes downstairs looking for Homer. She finds him slumped in the recliner and immediately thinks the worst, but instantly notices that his drool is in fact warm.
His drool.
He's alive. Warm. She wakes him up. At first, Homer's like, what do you want, Marge? Leave me alone, blah, blah, blah. And she's like, you're alive, you're alive. It takes him a few minutes to realize what's going on, but he wakes up and realizes that he must have not eaten the poisoned fish after all, because he is in fact alive. I thought right here it'd have been super fucked up if, like, then his heart exploded and it just took a little bit longer to get there. That's just the darkness
Maybe
in me.
I said he was unbreakable last week, didn't I?
I think you did. If it wasn't last week, it was a couple weeks ago.
Yeah, it just proves it's right into that theory as well. So we've got a Muggle-born witch, Jedi Master, and an unbreakable human. All in the same family.
There you go. So we end with Homer declaring that he will no longer waste his life, and then we instantly get a shot of him watching, I believe it was bowling, and eating pork rinds on the couch.
But if this was the next day, he is supposed to be over at that damn barbecue. He is supposed to bring some of the biggest, thickest, juiciest T-bones over to Flanders.
It's interesting you say that. First of all, before I get to that, let me say that I did want to point out that pork rind sequence was actually recycled footage from Moaning Lisa.
Okay.
Just a little fun fact for you. But you brought up the commitments that Homer has made, and there was actually an original ending shot to this that everybody agreed they liked better and was a great fit for the episode, but they just could not make it work from a timing standpoint. But in the original episode, it showed Homer the next day over at Flanders' house cooking his steaks that he promised to bring. While there, Grandpa Simpson showed up and is visibly annoying Homer with his love at this point. And Homer receives a phone call from the power plant that he should arrive at 9 a.m. sharp in Burns' office to talk about the incident on the side of the road.
I would have liked to see that scene.
I would have too, and it actually doesn't end there. Homer's visibly miserable, and Marge can tell, and she goes up to him and is like, Homer, you're glad to be alive, aren't you? Aren't you? And the show actually ends with Homer not answering.
Oh, that's so screwed up. Oh, that would have made me laugh, though, if I saw that.
Yeah, like I said, everybody agreed it was a fantastic ending, but they just could not make it work from a time to get everything across. They just could not make it work timing-wise. So I kind of get it, but yeah, it does sound like a really good way to end the episode. However, the pork rinds thing kind of works for Homer's character, honestly, because, I mean, realistically, obviously he's going to show up at work to cake his ass chewing, but other than that, he's probably not going to do those other activities. He's definitely not going to pick up Grandpa Simpson, and he's damn sure not going to go to Flanders' barbecue.
Well, he does in future episodes, but it's only to show him up. But you don't have time.
Exactly, not when he doesn't have an agenda.
Yeah, you don't have time to establish that. So I can see why they did it the way they did it.
Yeah, totally. Anyway, do you or your book have anything else to say about one fish, two fish, blowfish, bluefish?
2 quick notes from our little companion guide here. I didn't catch this at the beginning. It must have gone by too fast, but the Happy Sumo restaurant is on Elm Street. There's an Elm Street in every town. And let's see, where was the second one? Homer eats and eats off his plate of sushi, but he always has 2 pieces on his plate.
Oh, fun. I didn't catch that.
That's a common cartoon thing where the food never goes down or the drink never goes down when people are drinking it.
Yeah, I could see that. It'd be a pain in the ass to animate that.
Well,
Totally.
It is what it is.
I don't really have anything else to point out about this episode except for the fact that I really, really like this episode a lot. Like, I remember watching this episode when I was younger, but I don't remember enjoying it as much as I did on this watch through. And again, I already said it, but I was just so impressed with the way that they were able to tackle something so dark and still make it so Simpsons. Like, it was funny, there was great humor, there was great heart, and even though it was something really sad that they were tackling, it never got to a point where it, like, bummed you out.
Yeah, I can agree with that. I mean, in the times it did kind of bum you out, it was moments where they wanted you to feel that way.
And it was very temporary, and it wasn't enough to take you out of the comedic moments.
They did the Shakespeare thing where they hit you with the plot and the drama that's going on, and then they quickly cut away to something comedic to cut back on the tension.
Very good point. Very good point. The Shakespeare thing is dead on.
That's the way you feel on this one. The next episode is one that I've always enjoyed very much so since I was a kid, and I've seen it a million times, but I still enjoy.
Well, let's move on. That'll cover One Fish, Two Fish, Blowfish, Bluefish. Let's talk about The Way We Was, which debuted on February 7th, 1991. This time, the chalkboard gag was I will not get very far with this attitude, and the couch gag was a repeat where the couch just entirely falls through the floor into what I assume is the Simpsons basement. Richie mentioned it earlier, but there is a very notable first appearance in this episode, and that is of Rainier Wolfcastle, who plays the title character McBain. We also meet Artie Ziff, who is voiced by none other than John Lovitz.
I'm just throwing this out there right now. I would watch any McBain movie in a heartbeat. I want to watch all the McBain movies.
Oh yeah, I'm definitely with the second critic. We open watching the critics talk about this movie, and one thinks it's garbage, and one thinks it's fucking awesome, and I'm definitely in the fucking awesome category.
What did McBain say when he kicked him out the window? I completely meant to write that down, and I completely forgot to.
I don't know, but it was the whole concept of McBain and Rainier Wolfcastle in general is just a giant spoof on Arnold Schwarzenegger.
Yeah. Oh, I wish I would have remembered what he said.
So it was a great one-liner. I also didn't write down what he said.
But it wasn't great though. It was just corny in the best way.
Yeah, that's what I mean. It was corny in the best way, like Simpsons style. Yeah. Definitely. Anyway, back to the Simpsons living room where they're watching the critics talk about this new McBain movie. The TV actually breaks. The doctor of television is going to take a whack at it, literally, when Homer gets up and starts pounding on the television. It goes out even worse, and there's a great line where Bart's like, I think you lost the patient, Doc.
In this little sequence, the thing I also really enjoy is we all know how smart Lisa is and the kind of character she is, but she's still just as visibly upset as Bart that the TV's out, and I love that about... Like, Lisa doesn't get a lot of moments where I'm like, that's awesome, but this is one of those moments where I was like, that's awesome.
A Lisa's awesome moment.
Yeah. You saw it here first, or heard it here first. Whatever, do your thing.
I like that they basically start talking about how, like, oh, this is no big deal. Marge says when Homer and her first started dating, they almost never watched TV. Bart instantly is like, you lie. But they actually say no, they used to just talk and you know, share and whatnot. And Lisa actually asks the question, well, tell us how Dad proposed to you. We flash back to meeting with Homer, Marge, and Dr. Hibbert, where we find out that Marge is pregnant. And Marge decides that maybe she should tell a different story to her 8-year-old daughter.
Probably a good call. That's a little hard to explain, that one.
So instead, Marge decides she's going to tell the story of how they fell in love. Now, we flash back to Marge and Homer in high school together. They were seniors in high school, but they had never met.
Kind of odd.
Yeah, that is actually a little bit odd, especially since it didn't seem like it was like a huge town or anything.
As we'll know, over the course of 28 years, apparently they've met numerous times before that, even at younger ages.
Oh, yeah, that's true. There's other flashbacks episodes that kind of fuck this whole flashback up.
Well, no, they do a little, like, in some of the more recent ones, there's a summer camp that they both go to when they're kids, and they end up kind of falling in love for a little bit, but they both use fake names in that episode, if I remember correctly. I didn't see all of it.
Oh, so they, like, don't remember whenever they're telling this?
They don't, well, it's, you know, when they're, like, 8 or 10, as opposed to being 18, so that's 10 years apart, and they gave different names. And it was
I
just like
guess.
first summer love. So they try to cover their tracks a little bit to make it feasible.
Sure. And they also try to cover their tracks with how they haven't met since or don't know that they met from their senior year by having it very clear that they are in two very different social sides of the school. Whereas Marge is a very good student and on the debate team, I believe. Whereas Homer is not such a great student and a lot more interested in smoking in the bathroom than he is in actually going to class.
So, English, who needs that? I'm never going to England. Come on, let's go smoke.
Exactly. There's a moment where Marge actually kind of walks by Homer and Barney, and it kind of like, looks down on them for just smoking in the bathroom again.
Doesn't she call them the shop kids, I think?
The shop kids, yeah. She runs into some feminist who's talking to her about feminist things, and Marge she actually is talking about the equal pay, the wage gap. And there's a great line by Marge where this girl asks Marge, "Don't you think that women deserve equal pay?" And Marge says, "Not if I have to do heavy lifting or math."
Right before that, she also said, "I'm for equal rights, but do we really need a full amendment?" And that made me crack up. And I actually wrote a note on that. I've seen this episode more times than I can count, and I don't remember that line at all. I was laughing hysterically at it, and it's just we say this every time we talk about The Simpsons, but you can watch this show so many times and still pick up things that you didn't notice, and a lot of it might be that I saw it a lot when I was a kid, and it didn't mean as much to me, but especially in this day and age with everything going on in the world, like that line is just, it's still poignant today, and this episode aired in 1991.
Definitely, and I think a lot of it just, it's so interesting watching these episodes as an adult versus the last time I watched it. I was a teenager probably, but still very much a child by comparison to where I am today.
Exactly.
Still a just larger child.
Well, and also I also want to say, like, with Marge protesting in the scene after this, I don't know if you noticed this, but it looks like they're protesting on like a college campus. It doesn't look like a high school to me at all. There's this huge fountain outside, and it just kind of looked like a quad area to me as opposed to a high school. I thought that was kind of weird.
Yeah, it is a little bit of a strange
the 70s
setting. Yeah, I guess so. Yeah, I also really appreciated that the feminist lady trying to talk about the wage gap, where Marge totally just downplays it, hands her a Miss magazine, which has articles such as "Why are all men bad?" "Hating and dating, do they mix?" and 25 reasons not to shave your armpits. So Marge is protesting. She's full on burning her bra. She caught the movement's bug, and she is now part of it. And so much so that she actually ends up snagging detention for the very first time. Homer and Barney also snag detention, clearly not for the first time, when they are caught once again smoking in the bathroom. And we have the first time Homer supposedly lays eyes on Marge is when she walks into detention. Barney has been hitting on anything that moves, trying to get a prom date, and instantly starts to go for Marge, but Homer cuts him off and says, "This one is mine."
All right, go Homer.
Yeah, dude, again, we've talked about it before, but I get the impression that Marge is a fox back in the day from what it seems. It's hard to tell when you're a yellow cartoon character, but I'd hit it.
I bet most people would.
Dude, there's actually some really, like, this, I swear, and I do not judge whatever pornography you look at. That's totally your thing. This personally isn't for me, but I've seen images of it that just totally freak me out. But there are, like, popular websites that do popular animated women in pornographic acts. So, like, I've seen, like, Marge Simpson and Lois from Family Guy, and it's disturbing,
yeah, well,
dude.
I mean, let's be honest. Everybody looks at websites, and the banners for that kind of stuff and ads pop up on...
Oh, yeah, they pop up all the time.
Exactly what you're
yeah,
talking
totally.
About. That's just kind of weird to me as well in that regard, but...
It's a strange one that it seems like such a popular fetish.
Yeah, they're gonna have to talk to Mrs. K about that.
Yeah, they will. But again, it is what it is. Do you, everyone? You do you. I'm all for it. I really like the scene we get where Homer is now infatuated with Marge and trying to win her over. He's talking to his dad about it, and his dad he basically admits that he's in love, and his dad's like, "Go on, grab a beer, son." And Homer's like, "What? Me?" And his dad's like, "Shut up. What, you think I'm dumb enough to believe that you just collect the cans?"
No, he says, "I just collect the cans, Daddy." And that part cracked her up.
Yeah.
He was making fun of his son.
Yeah.
And again, that's something you don't understand until you're a little bit older. That made me crack up a lot.
Good moment between a young Abe and Homer Simpson. We also get Homer going to visit his guidance counselor, where he's trying to get advice on how to win over Marge, where the guidance counselor is basically explaining that that's not really the type of guidance he provides, and he's more interested in helping him, figure out something for when he's done with high school and trying to find a career. But he does give Homer an inside tip that she is on the debate team. He also gives Homer a pamphlet to work at the nuclear power plant where you do not need a college degree. And we get a great, great moment where Homer's walking out of the office looking at the pamphlet and giggling, and he goes, me at a nuclear plant. Kaboom!
Yeah. Which kind of almost happens a few times, and maybe it does actually happen in a few Halloween episodes.
True. So Homer decides to join the debate club, and he's given the topic of should the government enforce a 55-mile-per-hour maximum speed limit. Homer is completely just offended by this concept.
Sure, you'll save a few lives, but millions will be late. I mean, that's a good point, Homer. What is it worth?
Hey, I'm all for a faster speed limit. It works for Germany.
Well, then, is it the next day that he shows that he has to have a rebuttal, or was it in the same part?
It was while he's in his first debate class, he gets the opportunity to rebuttal.
He's like, Homer, can you show us your rebuttal? And Homer depantses himself and shows everyone his ass.
Hey, I sent you a meme yesterday. I'd really appreciate it, but the world would be a better place if we had more mooners and less assholes.
You did send me that.
You're welcome.
You're welcome, life.
We get a great little moment back in current time reminding us that this is actually a story being told where current day Bart is still trying to get the TV fixed because he's clearly bored with his story. And Homer gripes at him that he should pay attention because one day he might be telling his story to his kids if something breaks.
Yeah.
I'm sure this joke went entirely over my head when I was younger, but it's great.
Man,
it's really funny
again,
stuff.
Simpsons did it because every other show does this little scenario. Family Guy does it with all the Star Wars movies when the TV won't work and the power goes out. They tell the Star Wars story. They do it with Die Hard once too, I think, with the Cleveland show. Like, they repeat this gag in other cartoon shows left and right. Simpsons did it. All right, so Homer's shown his rebuttal. He's trying to get closer to Marge. Doesn't he just straight up ask her out at that point? And he tells her that he has references like Barney and the gym teacher and the shop teacher.
He does. And Marge actually goes and talks with all those people.
Which, already right there, that means she's interested. You got her, Homer.
Yeah, that's true. You got the hooks in.
What I liked is when he was talking to the shop teacher, did you notice the shop teacher was missing a finger?
Yeah, I did. I actually had a shop teacher in high school I didn't actually ever take shop, but I knew the shop teacher, and he was missing 2 fingers. So this guy's got some catching up to do. I enjoyed too, and one of the times when Homer is just like getting ready in the mirror, he's combing his hair. Some of it fell out, and he's like, "Oh, that's weird. Oh well, plenty more where that came from."
Yeah, that's the note after my neck. Like 2 notes from now, that's what I had. Is Homer's already balding in high school, his senior year, which
Poor guy.
It does happen to some people. So I don't want to laugh too much about it, but it was funny.
Yeah, but fuck those hairless people.
I couldn't give 2 pieces of hair if they care or not.
Nice. So yeah, Homer is doing everything he can to win over Marge, but she's not having it. And Homer finds out that she's a French tutor and decides that he needs help with his French.
I'm sorry. This is one of my favorite quotes. When Homer finds out she's a tutor, he goes, "You tutor? And anyone can be tooted?" That gets me every freaking time. Just the way he says tooted.
I agree. Unfortunately, in the course of the evening, though, Homer is both able to win over Marge, convince her to go to the prom with him, and then piss her off by telling her the truth that he in fact lied and isn't even enrolled in French class. He just wanted her to be there to spend time with her. She's mad because she actually has a very important debate the next day, and she ended up staying at his house until 1 a.m., which I gotta side with Homer on this one. She could have left earlier than 1 a.m.
She could have. I mean, but it is setting a precedent that Homer will lie to get what he wants, which has already played up in a few episodes. But at the same time, I'm not defending that he lied, but like if you look at it, it was for a pretty sweet reason, actually.
it was a romantic gesture, kind of like the reason you lie to your kids at Christmas.
There you go.
But yeah. So another great flashback real quick or flash forward back to present day. I love that at this point, Lisa is actually really interested in this story, and Bart is still just completely involved in trying to get the TV working again. He tells Lisa, get off the edge of your seat. They got married, had kids, and bought a cheap TV. The end.
Yep. Although it's not a cheap TV. They just got that TV very recently.
I know, and it was one of the best ones available at like 21 inches.
23, I think it was. But yeah, it was a $500 TV, wasn't it?
I think so. Anyway, unfortunately, as we said, Marge actually got really pissed at Homer after agreeing to go to the prom. But Homer still shows up on prom night to take Marge out. Marge is excited because in the interim, she's actually agreed to go out with fellow debater. You could even say a master debater. She agrees to go out with Artie Ziff, as we said earlier, voiced by none other than John Lovitz. And he seems like an alright dude at first, and Marge even says that she has nothing but respect for him after being on the debate team, I believe, for like 8 years.
She said she'd known him for 8 years and always respected him.
So Marge is getting ready, and her mother's helping her out. There's a great line here where her mom's telling her to pinch her cheeks to get redness in them, and Marge is like, can't I just use rouge? Marge's mother says, ladies pinch, whores use rouge.
Yeah. We've had it like, Marge's mother doesn't get a lot of screen time in the later seasons. I don't even remember if she's still alive or not, technically, but already a few times in the first season and a half, we've had some moments that really are short, but clarify who Marge's mom is.
I'd agree with that, yeah, and she's not a pleasant lady.
No.
I'd say. Anyway, speaking of people who end up not being super pleasant, Artie takes Marge to the prom. Homer goes solo because, he did pay for 2 dinners and a limo, which actually kind of sucks because he had said that he was saving up for like a new car and he was going to spend all that money on Marge. So,
yeah.
That's kind of a bummer. But anyway, they go to the prom. Artie and Marge end up winning King and Queen, and they actually leave to go to basically make out points.
Which, first of all, I'm sorry, especially in 1974... Artie's not going to win prom king.
No, he's not.
And they even make a little joke almost about it too, but it's just, I can't buy that part.
I can't either, but I do like when he's like, I'm so proud of you. You guys have chosen to elect your intellectual superior as prom king. Good for you.
As opposed to some sports jock, I think he says.
Yeah.
I like the opening scene in the prom where Dondalinger's at the door and the student walks in and he goes, is that a bong? And he's like, oh, you have asthma. Oh,
yeah, I had that written down too.
Good old Dondalinger.
Speaking of, I need my asthma is flaring up right now. So they're at makeout point, and it turns out that Artie isn't quite the gentleman that Marge thought that he was. He gets pretty handsy with her, and Marge gets upset, slaps him, and tells him to drive her home.
He broke her strap on her dress too. What a dick.
He did. Homer actually had asked the limo driver to take him up there as well, to which he replied, okay, but I'm only paid to drive. He runs out of time on his limo and decides that he will just walk home because he can't afford to pay anymore. Artie and Marge actually pass Homer on the side of the street after they've had their awkward moment and are on their way back to Marge's. Marge overhears her family talking about how glad they are that she decided to go to the prom with Artie instead of Homer. But Marge is starting to have second thoughts, and she actually decides to go pick up Homer off the side of the road.
What a nice lady.
Oh, there's right before that, though, Artie had a great moment where he was basically like, Marge, please don't tell anybody that I got a little bit handsy. It's not for my own good. It's that I'm so well respected that if they found out, it would actually hurt the town.
Earlier in this episode when they're at the prom and Homer sees Artie and Marge, he gets emotionally, and you can see that he's upset. I'm sorry. Looks like he's gonna cry a little bit, and I really like the scene. He walks into the other room and goes and sits on these stairs, and Marge goes in there after him when she sees him walk out, and they have this little moment where basically Homer's saying that like he knows that he wants to be with her and everything, And Marge just says, "I'm sorry, but you're not for me." Basically, it's what Homer actually says is that she's the only thing he's ever been this sure of in his entire life. And the way he says it, I know he's just a 17 or 18-year-old kid, but like I believe him when he says that. And I feel like for Homer saying something, putting himself out there like that, where he's never sure of anything, he never knows anything, but he is so certain about this one thing. And that's one of the sweet moments, and one of the reasons I always really like this episode. I really like the way this episode ends too.
I agree. Where Homer actually kind of breaks down a little bit, like you're talking about, and talks about how sure he was about Marge. And at any other time that he has thoughts, they're clouded by other thoughts. But when he thought about Marge, he was sure.
Yeah, very much.
Really sweet. Really sweet. It all ends well when Marge picks up Homer off the side of the road and tells him that she made a mistake and picked the wrong prom date. She then holds his hand and calls him prom date. And then there's a line that kind of, I like it, but I have to admit, it kind of is a little bit off-putting in just a little bit, because Homer says, "I've got a problem. When you stop this car, I'm going to hug you and kiss you, and I'm never going to be able to let you go." And isn't that basically what Artie just got slapped over?
It absolutely is, but the issue was Marge didn't like Artie that way, and she likes Homer that way, and she did. She just got mad at him earlier. But I've had that thought numerous times when watching this episode where Homer...
It's just a bit rapey is all I'm saying.
If she'd have been like, "I know, I want to take it slow," Homer would have been like, "Okay."
Of course, and I think that's the real difference, is Homer led with the speaking of his actions, like, this is what I want to do. He said this is what I'm going to do, but I think it could be reasonable that this is what he was expressing that he wanted to do, instead of whereas Artie just went for it, and I think that's the real difference.
Artie was smug before he would try to do it, whereas Homer was upset because he didn't know how the feelings would be reciprocated.
Perfect. That's on the nose, man, on the nose.
Did we just make it okay to have rape in the show? Is that what we just did?
I'm all for rape.
It's grape.
So I think that's pretty much all I have to say about this one. Great episode. However, is there anything that you or that book of yours would like to add before we get on out of here?
I think that this is an iconic Simpsons episode. There's so much in the future that plays off of this one episode, even though it takes place way before we ever even meet the Simpsons. I mean, Artie Ziff shows up numerous times after this. John Lovitz does a lot of great voice work on this show too. Oh my gosh, I love that when he's the critic and actually comes on to the Simpsons. That's a really good one too. Speaking of McBain earlier.
Yeah, definitely.
But I almost said nostalgia. I can't think of the word I'm looking for. All the parameters that this episode sets up just have so much to play off of in the future, and even episodes where they go back even further before this time in the Simpsons' lives. Now, the timeline gets a little tricky, but that's just because they actually put a year on it in this episode. But I think there's a lot of moments that you need to remember from this moment in time in Homer and Marge's life. The only thing of real noteworthy that we haven't talked about is the Larry Davis Experience, is the band that played the prom.
Yeah.
And they were tied into Some Enchanted Evening and also Old Money.
Yeah, we haven't actually gotten to Old Money yet.
Yeah,
we will be getting there shortly. But yeah, that was in season 1, Some Enchanted Evening. It was the band that was playing at the event that Homer and Marge are going to when they ended up having to get a babysitter. But that episode sucks, and I don't think we should talk about it anymore. But yeah, that was a cool little tie-in, though.
But yeah, just, more of explaining who Homer is as a person. It is a Homer and Marge episode, but to me, this has always been a Homer episode.
I agree. All right, man. Well, I think that's going to do it for this week's Best Darn Diddly Review Show. Before we get out of here, Rich, is there anything that you'd like to plug today?
As always, you can follow me on Twitter at TheWiz_Kid23. Let us know what you think about our review. Hit us up with any questions you want to know about. We may not always give you the right answer, but we're always right.
Well said, well said. As for me, I am at MrMostDaysOff on Twitter. Also, come and check me out on Voices of Wrestling for a weekly Lucha Underground review called Lucha of the Hidden Temple. Other than that, we have another special guest coming on to the show next week. He's actually a repeat guest from Season 1. Dr. Andrew Briseño will be back, and we will be talking about Homer vs. Lisa and the Eighth Commandment, as well as Principal Charming. We will see you next week.